I think we'll just go ahead and start. The first speaker is going to be Rodolfo, who's at INTA, the National Research System of Argentina, and he's going to talk about the small-scale distilleries and some of the partnerships and things that INTA is involved with in that organization. So Rodolfo, if you want to get started.
Okay, well, thank you, Carl, for the introduction. I will share my screen. Okay, as you said, I will be presenting this study, which is specifically about the energy footprint and the carbon footprint of the ethanol produced on farm in small-scale distilleries in the central Argentina region. We have a partnership with the association or the chamber of ethanol producers in the central Argentina. Our objective was to assess the carbon footprint and the energy footprint of the ethanol anhydrous produced in a representative mini distillery in Argentina. For those of you who don't know what the carbon footprint is the sum of the greenhouse gases emissions that are generated during the life cycle of a product, from the generation of the materials or inputs to the obtention of the final product. The same is true for the energy footprint, which is all the forms of energy used in the process of producing, in this case, ethanol, until obtaining the final product. This is the location of the small plants that we studied. This is the company that we used as a case study. And the objective is achieved through the methodology of life cycle analysis that takes into account all the emissions and the energy consumption that enter as an input to the system and that leave the output as solids, liquids, or gas. And from this system, we have two main products. One is the ethanol, and the other one is the WDGS, which we later use as a feed for the animals. So we got information from this main company for the crop production, for primary production, from the Porta company, which operates the distillery on the farm, and they have a system that take all the measures from the factory located in Córdoba. We have a third company, which is TecnoRed, that operates the biodigester. We take also into account the raw materials, the inputs, the yields, the emissions, all the products and byproducts obtained. We got some secondary information from databases, mainly the EcoEvent database, which has the environmental impacts of all the different inputs and materials used in the process. Our goal was to build a model of the production of ethanol, and we have the model here. We, in the first part, in the first block, we have the distillery. Here, the farm production, the crop production. We obtain corn grain and corn silage. The different processes are the grinding, the dinning, premix, liquefaction, fermentation, distillation, and hydration in order to obtain the anhydrous alcohol. And then we have the byproducts that go to a different system, which is the feedlot for beef production that we did not include in this model because it belongs to a different model. We did include the biodigester because there's a byproduct. I mean, the main product of the biodigester is the electricity that is sold to the net, but there is also some heat and some electricity that is used by the biodistillery. So in order to process this system, we have to take some decisions about the allocation of the environmental weight. So we have some criteria based on mass, on an economic criteria, or an energy criteria that is also used in the literature. And we decided to use the energy criteria because it goes with the directive of the European Union of 2009. So we assigned an environmental impact of 54% to ethanol, 33.5% to WDGS, and 12.5% to stillage. There are some pictures of the system here: the corn planting, the corn crop, the silage, the corn harvest, the cover crops that also enter the system. So there is some environmental emission here that is also taken into account to assign to the corn crop. This is a picture of the plant and the processing plant and the elevator, the mini desk, and the truck from the national oil company loading the anhydrous ethanol that is used directly as a fuel. Some pictures of the feed for the animals is 33% of the diet of beef production. There is the light stillage that is also used as a beverage by the animals. And this is very important because we don't have emissions from effluents, because it's collected by scrappers and they go directly into biodigesters that produce heat and also electricity. There's a general picture here of all the integrated system, which we also call circular economy. The most important part of this presentation are the results. Here in this column, we have the base case scenario. This is the real scenario with the fertilization of only 13 kilograms of urea per hectare. And in the right column, we have the scenario with 100 kilograms of urea per hectare. This is the result of the base case scenario with no allocation at all. So we estimate a carbon footprint of 76.9 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule of energy obtained. And we have to invest more than 1 megajoule in order to obtain 1 megajoule. But using the energy content allocation criteria, the carbon footprint is reduced to 41.5, the energy footprint to 0.57 megajoules invested per megajoule obtained. If we include the heat, the carbon footprint and the energy footprint go down until we get to the complete system with a carbon footprint of 19.9 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule and an energy footprint of 0.23 megajoules invested per megajoule obtained. We can also see the sensitivity analysis. This is the scenario with the whole field fertilization of 100 kilograms of urea, as I mentioned before, and the final result would be higher than the base case scenario, but not much higher. It goes up to 21.7 grams of CO2 per megajoule, and the energy footprint is 0.25. We need to compare this to something, so we took the reference value published by the European Union, which is 83.8 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule. So taking this into account, in green, we can see which is the reduction of emissions in this ethanol production system. We can say that if our result is 19.9 grams of CO2 equivalent per megajoule and the reference value is 83.8, then we have a 76% of reduction in the emissions. The same is true when we fertilize with urea, with 100 kilograms per hectare of urea, and then we obtain a reduction of 74% with respect to the reference value. Why did we use this reference value? Because the main export destiny of the ethanol produced in Argentina goes to Europe, so it is very important to know what the regulations are in Europe. When we open the different stages, we can see clearly two hotspots. One of the hotspots is during the fertilization. We can see here in blue and in green, which is the hotspot due to fertilization with urea, and the different forms of energy use in this distillery. For instance, LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, electricity, and water use in the distillery. So these are the two main spots that we have detected. I have two take-home messages. One of them is that the ethanol in this system, in this particular system with the circular economy system, reduces the carbon footprint 3 times with respect to the reference fuel, with respect to the European Union fuel. And also it multiplies the energy invested by 4. So we need to invest 0.25 megajoules in order to obtain 1 megajoule. Well, that's our main conclusions. Thank you very much for your attention. And just to mention that this is a joint work between the National Institute of AgTech, the National Institute of Industrial Tech, and also the Biofuels Chamber of Córdoba. I'm open for questions.
I think we're going to hold all the questions till the end, Rodolfo. I should have mentioned that to begin with, and then we'll get into them. Okay, so next we're going to have Gabriela, and she's going to talk about biodiesel and new possibilities, I guess. I should also mention that that she's the first part of the Campinas Mafia for the rest of these presentations.
And
okay.
Representing women here in this session.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me share my screen here. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm also going to start here my timer just to not get lost in time while I am talking. Okay, so, well, as I explained it to you, I am part of a research group which are doing a research about mature and innovative value chains. So to give you a big picture of our project, which is a joint project with TU Delft in the Netherlands, we are looking to the mature value chains, which are represented by soybean value chain to produce biodiesel, and Pedro is going to talk a little bit about the results of this mature value chain in his presentation. And I'm going to present for you now a little bit of our results regarding the innovative value chain, which is the Macaúba value chain. So the work is entitled Macaúba, a new possibility for an inclusive biodiesel production, because Macaúba is being pointed as a great potential for the biodiesel production. So we are looking a little bit deeper to the value chain and all the opportunities of inclusion that we can have in the future. So as not everyone are from the Brazilian mafia or the Campinas mafia here, I'm gonna give you a little bit of context about the Brazilian situation. So Brazil is successful in agriculture in general and also in ethanol biofuel production specifically. And we have public policies and initiatives aimed to the ethanol biofuel production since the 30s. And in the 70s, we had a very important initiative to make the biofuels focus of the national politics, which was the pro-alcohol. So in the 70s, we had this first big and important public policy in Brazil, but all the success and all the good results of the Brazilian initiatives, they are marked by some characteristics that are present in our reality, which are exclusion and concentration. So we can say that initiatives in general, they don't take into consideration all the diversity that we have in the Brazilian rural, and this reality of diversity is marked by many heterogeneity. So it was no concerns in the past in including the more vulnerable groups. And just to give you a very specific example, when it started the process of modernization of the rural areas in the 70s, only part of the farmers were included in the process, and the result was more exclusion and more concentration. So the already vulnerable groups, they got more vulnerable, and they couldn't express themselves because we were not in a democracy. And only by the end of the 80s, with the process of redemocratization, it was possible. So then the small farmers could manifest, they could share their needs, and it was only in the 90s that the first public policy aimed to the small farmers and to the more vulnerable farmers was created. So it is very recent, and because of this, the inclusion in this work for us means the inclusion of family farmers. So for us, an inclusive bio-based value chain is a value chain that considers and includes social and productivity the family farmers into the value chain. And we have a great example of a public policy that Pedro is going to talk about in his presentation, which is the social fuel seal, which is an instrument that tries to make this, to include family farmers into the biodiesel value chain. And macaúba is starting to be included also in the raw materials, which are part of this public policy, which was launched in 2004. So the macaúba commercial exploitation is divided in two main initiatives. The first one is the extractivism, is a model of commercial exploitation where the farmers go to the places that we have macaúba native palm trees, and they collect macaúba from these places to commercialize. So this is already part of culture of some family farmers, and it's already part of some local development initiatives. We have some examples of cooperative, for example, that we could, I didn't mention it in the beginning of the presentation, but we did field research. So we visited before the pandemic some places, but we couldn't visit the cooperative which works with extractivism initiatives, but we hope to visit it soon. We visited 5 initiatives of macaúba, and based in our plans, this one is missing. Only this one case, but it's a very important case of a cooperative. It's the only cooperative working with the production of macaúba, not only for biodiesel production, they produce another types of products. Yeah, but they are focused on extractivism. But the value chain for biodiesel production needs scale. It's a scale demander. So we have another type of commercial exploitation, which is just initiating the production, which is the plantation. So a new path is being traced, and we have many research that make this path possible. For example, this plant is yet in the domestication process, and the break of dormancy of the seeds was a very important technological lead, because in natural conditions, the seeds of macaúba can take 1 year to germinate, but the research allowed this time to be shorter. So now it is possible to have the germination of macaúba in 28 days. So it was a very important advance in this area, and it was part of a great research done by the University of Viçosa in Minas Gerais, where we have the occurrence of native macaúba, and where mostly of these initiatives of the macaúba production for biodiesel value chain are being developed. So it was in the department of Professor Sergio Motoiki. I don't know if you know the research of this research group. They are specialized in macaúba. They are making many advances, and it's a very important group. And it was only possible, this reality regarding the macaúba as a raw material for the biodiesel production is only possible because of this very important research advance. Macaúba takes a little bit of time until it starts the production. So if we plant today, it takes 5 or 6 years to start the production. So the initiative, which started 5, 6 years ago, they are just starting now the commercial phase, because the trees are just producing macaúba now. So what are the advantages of producing macaúba among other crops that we can have to produce oil for biodiesel value chain? So the first one is about the productivity of macaúba, because the production could reach about 4,000 liters of oil per hectare year. And if we compare with soybeans, for example, it's only a 420. So it's a huge difference between them. Macaúba plantations do not demand the land use change. So, for example, for farmers who already have pastures and livestock, they can keep it, and they can also have agroforestry system. So in the first floor, as they call, it's possible to plant, for example, watermelon, coffee, many cultures, many different cultures, temporary cultures. And in the second floor, it is possible so to grow macaúba. It is also possible to cultivate in low fertile soils. Here in Brazil, macaúba, native macaúba occurs in the Cerrado biome, and at least half of the Cerrado biome is composed by degraded pastures. So it is an opportunity to cultivate macaúba in low fertile soils, but not only this. It is also possible to recover these damaged soils, because macaúba has this potential of recovering natural resources as soil and also water resources. So it's a possibility also to make the afforestation or reforestation with many sustainable benefits for the biome. But as any initiative, in the beginning, there are many challenges, and with our field research, we could identify some of them. And the first one is that this initiative is embedded in many uncertainty and risks, both for enterprises, which are starting the commercial phase, and also for the farmers, the family farmers, which are being included. There is only one initiative here in Brazil, including family farmers while starting the commercial phase. We visited it. It is located in Pato de Minas, the city in Minas Gerais. The initiative is called Inocas, and it's a partnership with the German government. And yes, they are they are making many efforts to convince family farmers and to include them into the value chain because of those many risks. It is necessary high investments in the beginning of the plantations, and as the plantation, the culture of Macaúba takes a little bit of time, the contracts also have to be long-term contracts. So the family farmers do not want to commit for so long. For example, a contract can reach 20 years. Family farmers are characterized, those who are being included into the initiative, they are characterized by being conservative, elderly, and having many fears. So they do not know if they are be here in 20 years. So they do not want to commit for so long. But as the production only starts in 5 or 6 years, it's not possible to do for a low time. So yeah, we have to think a little bit more about how to flexibilize and how to find the best strategy for those contracts. And also a challenge is the size of farms, because family farming here in Brazil is almost a synonym of small farmers, because we have a law, and based on this law, to be considered a family farmer, to be included in public policy, farmers cannot be big. They have a limit of scale. So if the family farmers, they are only based in livestock, for example, and they don't have a minimum size to make possible the combination with the Macaúba plantations, it is not a feasible initiative. In the first 3 years of plantations, the Macaúba trees, they are very attractive for the cattle. So it is necessary to separate the cattle from the plantations. So because of this, it is necessary to have a minimal space in the farm to make this isolation. So my final message for you is that Macaúba has a great potential for being raw material for the biodiesel production, but it is in the initial phase of development, so there is room for many discussions. It's a very interesting case, but these challenges and other challenges that we probably will identify in our research, they have to be addressed, they have to be taken into consideration, even for the enterprises which are learning from the initial phase of the development, and also for the policymakers. So yeah, this is all of I have to share with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thanks very much, Gabriela. Maybe it makes sense, and if the rest of the panelists don't mind, for us to move Pedro up next, since he's working on a similar kind of project. Is it okay if we just move Pedro up next, and then we'll go on to, let's see, can't read my own handwriting. Pablo was supposed to be next, wasn't he? So we'll just move Pedro up one to the next presentation. Is that okay? Yeah.
Okay, I only have to discover how to stop sharing. Oh, okay, I found the button.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Pedro, do you want to go ahead?
It's me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, and yes, you just want to put it into, yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Pedro. I am a
You didn't
PhD.
quite change it yet to the,
Okay. My research intitulates.
there we
Okay.
go, good.
Okay. My research intitulates socioeconomic impacts of the biodiesel production chain on farming in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso is the result of my master dissertation. Okay. Um, a little context. The National Biodiesel Production and the Using Program, PNPB, was implemented in 2004 and it included the objectives of social inclusion and the promotion of development in the north and the northwest of Brazil. Social inclusion would be promoted based on the meals action of raw materials from family farms. For this, the social fuel seal was created. And the social fuel seal guarantees benefits of to meals that meet the requirements for the action of a minimum percentage of raw material from family farms. Uh, biodiesel, biodiesel production was consolidated based on soybeans, mostly, mostly from the South and Midwest regions of Brazil. Okay, even among family farms, soybeans is predominant among the raw materials offered for the biodiesel production. Soybean from family farm corresponds to 98 percentage. Okay, and the main producer of biodiesel are the states of Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso. So this research looked to the effectiveness of the social fuel cell and the impacts of biodiesel production on family farm and the local economies. It was compared on two states, Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso, which stand out as the largest biodiesel producer in Brazil. While the Rio Grande do Sul relies mostly on family farm, the agricultural sector in Mato Grosso is shaped by the predominance of large-scale production, cultivating areas greater than 1,000 hectares. The comparison, therefore, allows the identification of different impacts on local economies associated with the presence of family farms. The method and the methods to understand the structure of the biodiesel chain and the family farm in these two select states, the analysis is based on the off-sector and the complementary of official data, and the input-output metric is the methodology applied. Input-output metrics, this methodological instrument allows the measurement of the effects in a direct, indirect, and the overflow manner, spillover, effect spillover. Familiar biodiesel is biodiesel produced with raw material from family farm. Okay? Results and discussion, it cannot be denied that PNPB was successful in some aspects, which was decisive for the design and consolidation of the biodiesel production chain in Brazil. For example, between 2005 and 2019, the production of biodiesel increased from small production to large production. Nationwide, 51 plants were established. The product capacity strategy is sufficient to meet the demand projections for the next 5 years or more. However, a strong production concentration in the Midwest and the South regions, traditional centers of the Brazilian agricultural production, distorted the original aim of the program in promoting regional development. The results, impacts of familiar biodiesel production in Rio Grande do Sul and Mato Grosso. The present study found a low production of familiar biodiesel in Mato Grosso and a significant production of familiar biodiesel in Rio Grande do Sul. These different results between states result in impacts. The impacts on occupation in family farming in Rio Grande do Sul was 51 times greater than in family farming in Mato Grosso. Occupations in family farm in Rio Grande do Sul, 9,046 occupations. Occupations in family farm in Mato Grosso, 175 occupations. The impact on GDP in family farm in Rio Grande do Sul was 79 times greater than in family farm in Mato Grosso. GDP in family farm in Rio Grande do Sul, 61 million, and the GDP in family farm in Mato Grosso, approximately 1 million, 0.8 million. The level for average monthly income for occupation generating the family agricultural sectors resulted from the sales of soybeans for the production of biodiesel was, considering the 2011 year minimum wage 545, one minimum wage for family farms in Rio Grande do Sul, and 60% of the minimum wage for small production in Mato Grosso. This is main results. Okay, thank you everybody.
Thanks, Pedro. So now we'll go to Pablo, and he's going to be talking about trade issues. Is that correct?
Yes, I will talk about the embodied environment and energy aspects in the international trade.
Great.
I will share my screen now. Could you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Continue to see?
Yep, fine.
Okay, I will start my time here in one moment. So I will explain here in my presentation the biofuel flows embodied into Brazilian international market, international trade. And this is part of my master degree research. I am studying the bilateral trade between Brazil and China, and in the environmental aspects and the socio-economic aspects embodied. So the question is, why study the research is embodied international trade? And we can present a context, yes, and with the globalization and pulverization of the global value chain, allied to environment and climate agreements done based in production accounting, like Kyoto Protocol, allied to the weak social and environmental protection law. And in this main context leads to the direct and indirect transfer of environmental and energy resource through the international trade, generated problems like the so-called carbon leakage. Yes. And so a lot of researchers have found evidence of this problem in developed economies, and in a lot of is in accordance with the literature. This problem could be directed with the use of another responsibility principles, like the consumption-based accounting, and when we change the accountability of the burden environmental, we can discourage the problem of the carbon leakage. So the main context is we can change the viewpoint by another principle use, and looking for the potential mitigation policy when we change our viewpoint, I don't know, things like that. So we can direct what is the role of biofuels in this context. Yes, and through development of this research, I used extended multi-regional input-output model, and I constructed with the WIOD database for the year of 2009, because it's the last year that the project available the table or environmental table, and I looking for the secondary energy and biofuels embodied in Brazilian international trade in its products. Here I begin the results, and we can see here the profile of the international trade of Brazil in 2009. And the trade balance was favorable to Brazil, and we can observe a great dependence on primary products in Brazilian exports, and a large participation of manufacturing products in its import basket. And to attend all of these demands, Brazilian products exports embodied in its products 1,880 terajoules of secondary energy, and imports in the rest of world products 1,882 terajoules. So we can see Brazil is a net import of secondary energy embodied. Yes, and it's clear when we get a look in the aggregated embodied intensity and per GDP embodied in the international trade between the Brazilian rest of world, and the rest of world embodied almost 18% more, 20% more energy than Brazil. And so here we can put one question, and what is the profile of the secondary energy embodied in transactions? And here we can see this profile, and here we can get a look in this profile secondary energy embodied, and it become clear that Brazil is a net export of a clean energy embodied, like a biofuels, and is a net importer of a fossil fuel energy or dirty energy. And we can set that the Brazilian avoid emissions in its international trade. Yes, then we can get a look in this kinds of biofuels embodied in the Brazilian international trade, and we can see a great potential to promote the use of biofuels throughout the international trade with I don't know, politics and environment politics to promote the biofuels. And we can, Brazil exports almost 8% of biogasol embodied corresponding approximately to 8% of gasoline, and biodiesel embodied correspondingly approximately to 5% of diesel embodied. It become clear here and the existence of this long way to expand the biofuels participation in international embodied energy. And if all gasoline were substituted by biogasol and diesel substituted by biodiesel, would be avoided approximately 80 megatons of carbon in the international Brazilian trade. Yeah, and here we have the main conclusions. And Brazil was a net export of biofuels embodied, and in 2009, almost 1 megatons of carbon embodied was avoided in Brazilian exports. Almost 10% of all Brazilian biodiesel consumption was embodied in its exports, and 1.6% of biogasol consumption was embodied in Brazilian exports. And the main idea is when we change the viewpoint and use another responsibility principle, like consumption-based accounting, we open the mind to another possibilities of cooperation and mitigation policies through the promotion of biodiesel or biofuels. For example, one country chose to trade with Brazilian economy, it avoided the emission carbon throughout the biofuels use in Brazil, and some kind of certificate could be promoted to this carbon avoided between the international trade inside the international trade. So this is my research, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Pablo. So our next speaker, actually our last speaker, is going to be Fernando, also from University of Campinas, and he's going to actually, there was a mistake in the program which said that he was going to present 2 papers, but in fact he's going to stick with one, and it's concerned specifically with regional inequities in agriculture. And so Fernando, go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Bray. First, can you confirm to me that you are seeing my screen?
Yes, we're seeing your screen. And
put in the,
yeah,
presentation
okay,
mode.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Starting this paper is titled Regional Inequalities in Agriculture, Brazilians' Biofuel Production in a Learning Economy. It was written by me. It was as a result of my postdoctoral researcher in partnership with Professor Yvette Luna from the Institute of Economics and Professor Roney from the Faculty of Economics, and I am from the Department of Science Technology from UNICAP. Starting from the research problem of this paper, if we see this map here, we can see the production of sugarcane in 2 moments, in 2003 and 2017. Then we can see movement of the frontier into the Minas Gerais, Goiás, mainly in Cerrados region, and also here in Mato Grosso. And it's not actually a new area, but also we have here in North Paraná another area of growth. Why in 2002 we have only this main region here as the growth area of sugarcane and bioethanol in Brazil. Here, from this this map, this change of geography of the production that we understand based on the sugarcane frontier. The point that we are going to discuss is if the movement of the frontier is changing the geography of knowledge, and it's also increasing the potentialities to sugarcane increase the new knowledge capability in Brazilian countryside. This discussion is essential to a question based on bioethanols. It's good for regional development. If we do these questions, we need to understand the geography of knowledge. Regional development has many variables, and one of these variables needs to be innovation and needs to be connected with knowledge. So it's part of a broader question. This is what we aim to contribute. If water papers that are not as regional development, they need to consider this variable that we are discussing. So we have this question that is our main question. How the change of geography affects the geography of knowledge. And the knowledge, it's also increasing, it's following the frontier. This is our question for this presentation. To answer this question, we have 3 discussions in the literature. The first discussion is the regional innovation systems. That means to analyze knowledge as a regional interactive process. It's not produced only by the firm, by the ethanol plant, but it's produced by an interaction that involves universities, the bioethanol plant, the firm, and that also involves research centers. This is the first literature that we are using. We combine this literature with a second one that is the different knowledge base. So we have not only the question if the sugarcane is improving in knowledge, but which type of knowledge is sugarcane improving. For instance, it's analytical knowledge. Analytical knowledge means more knowledge, abstract knowledge, scientific knowledge, or it's more synthetic knowledge. That means the learning by doing process, the knowledge that the farmers get when they are producing sugarcane. We combine these 2 literatures with a third one that is the core periphery analysis. So we can have a core with major regional innovation systems that produce analytical knowledge, combined with a periphery that with a poor innovation system that produce only synthetic knowledge. This is the theoretical background for our discussion and what orients our methodology. The methodology is to divide that first map that I showed in the beginning of the presentation in 6 sub-regions. We understand that the region of São Paulo outside, that where is Campinas, Piracicaba, Ribeirão Preto, is the core region, while the other regions, Paraná, the Mato Grosso do Sul, Goiás, and the Triângulo Mineiro, and the west of São Paulo are peripheral regions. So we make this regional division. The next step is to measure analytical and synthetic knowledge. Analytical knowledge was measured by the location of the publications. So we are analyzing the data about the publications of sugarcane to measure this scientific knowledge. We use the LATS platform to do that. We use keywords, cana-de-açúcar, it's sugarcane in Portuguese, cana-de-açúcar without the hyphen, and sugarcane to see the papers. We also made a cut in these papers to exclude the human science and other areas that also might produce about sugarcane, but it's not scientific knowledge associated with the production. So we are looking only for agrarian science, biological science, and exact and earth science or engineering. These areas that produce papers about sugarcane. A second step in analytical knowledge, it's the list of jobs related to agriculture knowledge. It was based on HICE database, and we choose the professions that are researcher in agronomic sciences, agriculture engineer, a list of professions that I will not have time to show here, but we choose also professions such as geologists that can produce knowledge. It's not directly produce knowledge for agriculture, but it might produce. And we divide this in two categories: general knowledge and specific knowledge. General, it's a knowledge in the region. Specific, it is knowledge in the sector. So we make this difference to analytical knowledge. Synthetic knowledge is based on the work experience to measure the learning by doing process. It's also based on RAISE database. And it's also use another list of jobs, but this is the technical jobs. So it's a tractor driver, sugarcane producer, geophysics technician. We use this to measure the synthetic knowledge in sugarcane. All this data was analyzed in 3 years, 2003 and 2010, that it's a moment of growth of sugarcane, and 2010 and 2017, it's a moment of crisis and a reduction of the investments. For the results, we have here the analytical knowledge. We produce this map here that we can see that the main part of knowledge production is still in the core, is still in the São Paulo, the region that we call São Paulo early regions. We have, in fact, we have some regions in the periphery that has important knowledge production, such as Paraná, the role of the two universities here, the Londrina universities and the Maringá University. But if we see the other regions, they are not so important. It's more points. It's one city, one university. It's not a system of knowledge interaction between universities as we have here in the core. This is the first data. The second data based on the jobs related to agriculture. This is the general knowledge. Here we can see that the core region is growing the first moment, but it reduced. But it's still more than the half of the knowledge production. We see here Paraná growing, and other regions as with a lower share. Is here we put the specific analytical knowledge. The specific analytical knowledge, it's the knowledge in the sector, in the firm. It's in the bioethanol plant. These jobs in the bioethanol plants. Then we can see the São Paulo frontier region growing. It's an interesting point of analysis that shows that probably the São Paulo frontier is not producing this knowledge, but it's absorbing the jobs from other regions. So it's more advantage for the region to absorb external jobs. The second result is based on work experience. We can see here all the regions have increasing the work experience here in 2017, mainly Paraná region, and as Mato Grosso do Sul, Goiás is also increasing. It means that the synthetic knowledge, the knowledge based on the learning by doing process, the learning by producing the sugar cane is increasing in this region. This is the same thing we don't see so much in analytical knowledge. The other point is the technical knowledge. Here we can see that it's also increasing in the periphery, reducing the amount of the core region. So to finish this presentation, our results is that knowledge creation does not follow the frontier. If you want to analyze if bioethanol is good or bad for regional development, we need to consider this variable. It doesn't show the same movement of the production. We can say that the knowledge production benefits the core, not the periphery. It benefits the region that starts, because this is the region where there is a regional innovation system that can produce this knowledge, and this knowledge, the problems, specific problems of Cerrados goes to the core regions. Then it's part of their research. So this is one of the results. The second result is the periphery is based on synthetic knowledge. They have deficiencies in the regional innovation systems. For instance, it seems that the Paraná region has an increase in publication, has increase in general knowledge production, but there is a reduction in the specific knowledge. We consider that maybe it needs more studies to make this, to affirm that, but maybe there is a lack of interaction between the university and the firm. And São Paulo, we also have this low publications, low general knowledge production, but increase the specific knowledge it's absorbed from the core. And the other new regions of expansion have also low publications, low jobs related to analytical knowledge, and improving scientific knowledge. But this is the final conclusion. We achieve this because for our general data, we need case studies to study more what is happening in these regions and why they are not producing analytical knowledge and become based in scientific knowledge. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Fernando.